So here we are, Mortal Kombat's out pretty much everywhere now. I think the UK hasn't gotten their release yet, unfortunately, or at least parts of the UK at least, but it has had a more wide release than it had a few weeks ago. I had the opportunity to see the movie a few days before it actually released here in the States, and I put that review up. It did fairly well. If you're interested in seeing my non-spoiler thoughts on the movie as a whole, then check that out right here, or somewhere around in here, wherever the card shows up. And as I said in that review, as a fan, I really did enjoy this movie. I've seen it 2 times since then, but also, as I said in that review, here I am doing the spoiler review or talk, or just, we're gonna talk about spoilers and stuff here. There were some things I really couldn't elaborate on, and I wanted to be real careful about what I talked about in my initial review because it was an early review, and I really didn't want to ruin anything for anybody. But now it's out, and everybody has equal opportunity to see it, so gloves are off, let's talk some fucking spoilers. Now I'm gonna go over some things that did bother me about this movie, but it doesn't change the way I felt about the movie as a whole. Yes, there were some things that were missing that I wanted there, a few things that changed, and some things that weren't the way that I thought they were gonna be. But it's an adaptation, and overall, I think they did a pretty good job with it. It's dumb fun, and that's what Mortal Kombat has always been. I feel like it preserved the feel, tone, and spirit of Mortal Kombat. Were some of the performances a little hokey? Sure they were. I mentioned that in my review. Could it have been better? Of course. Anything could be better. But that doesn't change the fact that I had a whole lot of fun with this movie all 3 times that I've seen it now. Right out the gate, let's talk about Scorpion and Sub-Zero, probably the best parts of this movie, but they're also the best parts of the franchise overall. Most notably, let's talk about Scorpion and how little he is in this movie. Of course, as you all know, the movie starts with the origin story of the Scorpion-Sub-Zero feud, and Scorpion whoops all kind of ass in this scene until Sub-Zero ends up whooping his ass. This was a great scene, and I really like the way they went about it, but the one thing I like the most out of everything else about this scene is something I don't really hear a whole lot of people talking about, and that's the fact that they went with the original version of this story. The Sub-Zero Scorpion feud has been at the heart of Mortal Kombat since its release in 1992, and it's always been that Sub-Zero came and killed Scorpion's family, and then Scorpion, he went to hell, he comes back for revenge. However, in the late 90s, I think it was Mortal Kombat 4 that first introduced the character, Quan Chi came onto the scene, and they changed the whole background, and apparently they said that Quan Chi was the one that went in there and made Scorpion think that Sub-Zero killed his family. Because Sub-Zero's actually an alright guy. It's not his fault. He didn't do it. It's a frame-up. Now, I never cared much for this storyline. I didn't like the fact that they went back and changed such an integral part to the Mortal Kombat mythos. That and the fact that Quan Chi was the one who did it, and ever since his inception, I fucking hate Quan Chi. I think he's a terrible fucking character. So thankfully, they didn't include that in this version of Mortal Kombat, unless they go back and change it in the sequels. Please, for the love of fucking God, don't do that. Just keep Quan Chi the fuck out of this timeline for Mortal Kombat. God damn, I hate that motherfucker. So yeah, in this one, Sub-Zero's just the asshole who killed Scorpion's family. It's just like the old school mythos, and I really like that. Now, upon Scorpion's death at the hands of Sub-Zero, he ends up flaming out and going to hell, or the Netherrealm, which is Mortal Kombat's version of hell. And that's where he stays for the entire fucking movie until like the last 10 minutes. This bothered me because Scorpion is my all-time favorite character in the Mortal Kombat universe, and he was definitely one of 2 of the best characters in this whole movie. The other one being Sub-Zero. I mean, there's other good characters in the movie, but those 2 are definitely the best characters in this film. So the fact that we didn't get anything from Scorpion for the vast majority of the film kinda did bother me. However, when he does show back up in the end, it is pretty fucking badass. Now, I've seen some people say that it didn't make any sense why Scorpion just showed up there at the end, and it kinda did. The movie explained it. It's because Cole had his original spear that had his blood on it, and Cole is one of his ancestors, and I guess when he got cut and he was fighting Sub-Zero, his blood mixed with Scorpion's blood, and that summoned him back. And Raiden did say that as long as you had this spearhead with you, that the spirit of Hanzo will always be there with you as well. I mean, does it make like a lot of sense? No, but I mean, it makes sense in the Mortal Kombat universe. Speaking of that end part with Scorpion, how about that motherfucking fatality? That's the one that I was talking about in my review that we're all waiting for, and as it's about to happen, we know it's coming, but we're wondering, how good's it gonna be? Are they about to fuck this thing up, because if it's not on point, if it looks off, if it ain't right, then this whole thing's gonna fall the fuck apart. Thankfully, when he takes that mask off for like the 58th time during that scene, by the way, and he starts spewing fire out of his mouth, burning fucking Sub-Zero to a goddamn crisp, and his mouth and face just slowly start to kind of morph into a skull, it was fucking perfect. This was so badass. If he had been like game accurate and just like taking his mask off and there was a skull under it and blew the fire, well, yeah, that would have been game accurate and it absolutely worked in the game. Here in this movie, that would have been corny as fuck. Yes, I know that's what he did in the 1995 movie, but the tone of the 1995 movie was very different from this movie. It just worked there, but this was a much more serious take on Scorpion, and I don't think it would have worked here. Now, based on what Scorpion says to Cole there at the end of the movie after defeating Sub-Zero, I'm assuming that now he's free because, you know, he said, hey, thanks, because of you, now I'm free. So when we get the sequel that we're probably going to get, especially based on the fact that now that this movie's opened more or less wide, it has already surpassed its budget, Scorpion will be a more predominant figure in the film, or at least I'm hoping so. He doesn't really have a whole lot of a reason to fight now, but since he's free from NetherRealm, I'm guessing he can at least be there for most of the movie. What reason they end up wrangling him back into the fray, I don't know, that's on the writers, but I'm really looking forward to seeing more of this version of Scorpion. Now, taking it back close to the beginning again, let's talk about Cole Young, because he has been what's on the tip of everybody's tongue when talking about this movie quite a bit. And that's because the character of Cole Young was fucked from the get-go. There was nothing they could have done to make this character be beloved by everyone. You're taking a beloved franchise that is almost 30 years old with a plethora of characters, some of which are highly coveted, and you're putting this new made-for-the-movie character in center stage and just pushing some of these other beloved characters off to the side. No, there was nothing they could have done. Cole Young could have been the most badass character ever created in Mortal Kombat history, and it wouldn't have worked. People were automatically going to have a grudge against him. Now, on the flip side of that, as I said in my review, Cole Young's not the most badass character ever made in the history of the Mortal Kombat universe. But he's not as bad as I expected either. He's okay. Is he needed? No, absolutely not. They could have put someone else, anyone else, in that role. But from what I understand, he was a studio mandate. In order for them to make this movie, they said, you have to put a new created character by us in the movie for the audience to have to learn what's going on in this universe. Even though they could have done the same thing with someone like Johnny Cage, or even put Liu Kang in that role, or just anybody. They could have put anybody else from that universe that's well known in that role, and it would have been okay. But if we just had to have Cole Young be part of the party to get Mortal Kombat off the ground and going, I'm okay with it. I don't expect them to just get rid of him for the next one, but I do hope he at least takes a bit more of a backseat to some of the old faithfuls. And of course, what we were all wondering originally was, what is Cole's purpose? Well, we find out in the film, and it's not really that shocking, that he is the descendant of Scorpion. That's right, Sub-Zero killed Scorpion's family, except for the little baby that was put in the floorboards that earlier on was crying its fucking head off, but as soon as they put it in the floorboards, it just shut the hell up. Being a father of 6, I'm gonna say that is an amazing feat unto itself. They must have gave that kid some fucking Benadryl or something, because as soon as they put it in the floorboards, it just shut the fuck up. Even though all this stuff was going on, people running up on the floors and everything, and screaming and yelling and murder, and it didn't, not one goddamn peep. Until everybody was gone and or dead, and then it just started screaming its head off again. Movie logic, but you know, it works, I guess. So Raiden pops down right after Scorpion's demise, takes Scorpion's only living child, and goes off to his Raiden temple or whatever, where I guess he like raises Scorpion's daughter, they say it is. And eventually down the line, we get Cole Young. Now, while Cole was kind of a vanilla character and I didn't fall in love with him, I didn't absolutely fucking hate him either. He was there, and yeah, I wish the movie hadn't focused as much on his story, but it was fine because I got all these other characters I love. That was fine. Okay, I get it. They made you do it. At least they tried to do as best they could with this studio mandated character. I know, judging on the comments, that's not gonna be good enough for a lot of people, but for me, myself personally, that was good enough. Now, one more thing about Cole would be the superpower he ends up getting that anybody who has the Mortal Kombat mark gets. That's what a nice chunk of the movie is about, him trying to develop this superpower, and it just never comes out until, of course, his family is put in danger when Goro's trying to beat the fuck out of him. And then, I know, shock Shocker, his superpower comes to light, and it's a suit of armor with like some tonu, I think they call them, batons. Those things that Stryker had in the game and like police had, the police batons, kind of like that, except it's got some spikes on it. Yeah, I mean, it was alright, I guess, but overall, that superpower was kind of lame. I do get it, though. It's kind of foreshadowed throughout the film, especially earlier on. They talk about how Cole gets his ass kicked all the time, and how he can, like, take a punch like nobody else, so when he gets armor so that he can take a punch, that's, you know, haha, you know, foreshadowing. Now, I've seen a lot of people upset with the fact that Cole was able to dispatch of Goro so quickly. Now, I would go out on a limb and say it really wasn't quickly. He kind of got his ass kicked by Goro for a good bit, and then he got his superpower, and he came over there and sliced him open and put the fucking thing through his eye in a very gruesome way, and his guts fell out and all that. Yes, Goro's gone. However, in the end of the movie, we hear Shang Tsung say something along the lines of, you know, death is just another realm, or it's just another step, or whatever. He pretty much says motherfuckers who died aren't necessarily fucking dead. And this is Mortal Kombat, so we already know that. And you see specifically Goro and I think it was Sub-Zero, we see them kind of like that black smoke come up and their bodies go away. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see these characters in the follow-up film, especially characters as popular as Goro and especially fucking Sub-Zero. While yeah, I know in the lore, Sub-Zero's younger brother takes up his mantle, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see this Sub-Zero again in the sequel. And while I think that we could definitely get Goro again, and I'd be totally cool with that, I really wouldn't mind seeing the one that we haven't gotten to see in any of the film adaptations up to this point, and that would be Kentaro. I always thought Kentaro was cooler than Goro anyway. He had like those tiger stripes going on and all that. He was just a really cool looking character. But that's looking forward. We're talking about this movie right now, so let's get back to that. Now, while I guess the big reveal of the movie is that Cole Young is the descendant of Scorpion, me myself, I didn't feel like that was the biggest reveal. The big reveal to me and to a lot of people was in the very end of the movie. And that's of course when Cole is about to leave the gym he's at, and the guy comes up and says, hey man, you know, I got a fight for you. And he's like, no, I don't do that no more. I ain't fighting for $200 no more. And the guy's like, oh yeah, so you just finally giving it up then? And Cole's all like, yeah man, I guess I am. So where are you going? Hollywood. And we know right then what he's talking about, but they ram it home even more, and it is pretty fucking awesome as the camera pans over to a poster that, by the way, has been hanging on the fucking wall the whole time because I looked for it the second time I watched the movie, and it's there. You can see this poster about 3 times throughout the film, but it zooms in on a poster and it doesn't show his head, it just shows a bust, and like it's a movie poster for a movie called Citizen Cage, and it's got like Johnny Cage's torso and a big ass belt that says Cage. And then the movie just like blanks out to the Mortal Kombat symbol starting the new 2021 Techno Syndrome song. It's an awesome way for the movie to go out. They ended with fucking Techno Syndrome just like the 1995 version, which is the only fucking way you should ever end a Mortal Kombat movie, by the way. And we get a great tease of a character that, while yes, Johnny Cage has always been a popular character and he's been there since the 92 original game, he really wasn't the most popular character in the first game or even the second one. He was a bit more popular in the second one, but he was never one of the greats. It wasn't until the later games when they started to actually focus more on Johnny Cage, or at least the Cage family, that he became much more popular like he is now. He was always a popular character as far as the storyline goes, I guess, but he was never like a super popular character that a whole bunch of motherfuckers used. Now stop, if you're like a Johnny Cage super fan and always have been, and you're like, fuck you, all kinds of people use Johnny Cage, he's huge. Yes, I get that he is a character and plenty of people use him, but compared to some of the greats in the Mortal Kombat roster over the years, until the more recent, like within the past 10 years games, he wasn't like one of the more popularly used characters in the game. I mean, that's just the truth. Like the OG MK games, he just wasn't one of the most popular characters used. But when people found out he wasn't gonna be in this movie, they lost their fucking minds about it. And I'm with you, I get it, yeah. Johnny Cage probably should have been Cole Young. But given all that stuff I explained a moment ago as to why Cole Young is here and we didn't have Johnny Cage, I think this was a great way to say, hey, you didn't have him, but you're gonna get him. And it made him a central part of the very end of this movie, and I really like the way that they did that. So when people ask, is Johnny Cage in the movie? No, but kinda. I mean, he's not in the movie, but they do talk about him and it shows half of a picture of him. Now, somebody else that everybody was wondering, is is or is not in the movie is Katana, and the simple answer is no. She's not in the movie. However, one of her fans is in the background in part of the movie, so we know that she exists in this universe. Where she is, if she's alive, or what, we don't know. She's never even referenced as far as I remember from the 3 times I've watched this flick so far. But as much as everybody's talked about her in the lead up to this film, when we get a sequel, I'm sure she's gonna show up in some way. If you're wondering what part the fan is in, it's the part when Shang Tsung and fans first come to Raiden's temple and they're all sitting there having the talk before Raiden throws down the lightning shield. Right off to the side and kind of back of Raiden in a couple of shots, you can see her fan just sitting there opened all the way up. It's kind of on display for all to see. You gotta wonder, why is her fan on display? Does that mean like maybe she was the champion of one of the Mortal Kombats or something? I don't know. But it's there, so that kind of shows that either they were just paying homage to her or she does in fact exist in this world. Which, since Melina is in this movie and Melina is a clone of Katana, then that kind of says that yes, she does have to exist in this universe. Whether she's alive or not, that is a better question though. Now also, speaking of Melina, everybody was concerned about her teeth. Yes, you heard me right, her teeth. In the game, she was part Tarkatan, so she had like the Baraka teeth thing going on. Whenever she took the mask off, it was like, oh fuck, bitch needs some fucking dental. And I like the way that they did it in this movie. It was kind of neat. They took Melina and she just kind of had like some black stuff smeared on her face, almost like grease. And her teeth may have been a little jacked up, but they didn't really stand out much. But when she like went ham when she was fighting, it's like her mouth started to like rip open, all jacked up like as she opened up and the fucking teeth came out. It was really neat. I like how they did it. Now I understand that they had a lower budget in this movie, so maybe that's why she didn't walk around with fucking Baraka teeth the whole time. But honestly, I liked it this way better. Also, Melina gets her fucking chest blown out by Sonya and her little pink rings that she earns as her superpower after killing Kano. Yeah, I know, in one sentence, I just hit all kinds of fucking spoilers right there. Yes, Melina is dead, and yes, it's because Sonya shot her with her little pink rings that she has in the first game. And yes, she got them because she does fight Kano and ends up sticking a fucking garden gnome into his fucking head and killing him. And since she did kill him, she ends up getting his dragon mark and being able to earn her superpower. Now, speaking of Kano, along with Scorpion and Sub-Zero, he is the best part of this fucking movie. And I've never even been a big, huge Kano fan, but in this movie, it made me a Kano fan. Josh Lawson did a fantastic job as Kano here. I've heard a lot of people saying that wasn't Kano, that's not how Kano acts. It was just some guy running around seeing how many times he could say fuck and being vulgar. He just got on my fucking nerves. No shit, that's what the fuck Kano does. Have you ever seen Kano in any of the media that he's in? I mean, in the earlier games, I guess all he does is rip out fucking hearts and like hold them in the air and go bleh. But any of the later stuff where we see more of Kano's personality, that's how he is. He's vulgar, he's vile, he's a smartass, and yes, he's not a very nice fucking person. Kind of like the portrayal here. So I did think that this Kano was pretty damn faithful to the Kano that is in the game series. Was he missing his metal eyepiece? Yeah, sure, but look at the end of the fucking movie. He has a garden gnome shoved into his fucking eye and dies. Now, like I said about the other characters that died and that whole, this is just the first step in another path, or whatever the fuck it was Shang Tsung said, pretty much saying that they're not really dead. I'm willing to bet that Kano will be back in the next movie, and because of the whole garden gnome to the fucking face thing, he's gonna have some kind of cybernetic thing going on here. But prior to that gnome to the dome, Kano earlier in the film does get to do his OG fatality, which most of us saw in the trailer. Yes, he rips somebody's fucking heart out, and as we're watching the trailer, we said, hey, that looked like a big lizard monster. I think that's fucking Reptile. Now, I don't know. I'm not really sure if that was Reptile or just one of the same species that Reptile is a part of. Shang Tsung did order someone to send in one of the reptilians when that happened, so whether that is the actual character Reptile or just one of the reptile creatures, I don't know. I mean, the character's only on screen for a few minutes. He comes in, wreaks some havoc. He does all the reptile stuff. You know, he's invisible, he's got acid spit, he's got a really long fucking tongue that he grabs people with. So even if he is not specifically the character of Reptile, for all intents and purposes, he is Reptile in this movie. And Kano straight up punches a fucking hole in him and rips his fucking heart out. One more thing about Kano. Let's talk about his superpower, which of course is a laser beam he shoots out of his fucking eyeball. Everybody was making a big deal about, oh, how Kano should like shoot a laser beam out of his eye and that should be a superpower. But if you look back to the OG Mortal Kombat game, it wasn't actually until Mortal Kombat 3 that he ever did any kind of lasers coming out of the eye thing. The OG Mortal Kombat 1 and 2, which Kano's actually only really in playably in part 1, there's no laser beams for Kano. None of that. He throws a bunch of knives and he like goes into balls and flies across the screen. That's about it. Laser beam thing didn't come until much later, and they didn't really lean hard into it until much later after part 3. So I didn't really know why everybody was really caught up on him having to have a laser beam shoot out of his eye. I mean, I was fine with it. That's cool, and I did like the way that they found it. They pissed him off real bad at lunch one day and told him he couldn't have some fucking egg rolls and start calling him names, and that's when he developed his special power and shot a laser beam at Kung Lao. I've heard complaints about this. People saying that was dumb, that's how it happened. They explain it in the movie that a lot of the times people's powers manifest when they're in danger or they're angry or there's some type of heightened emotion. So yes, it made sense. That's what Liu Kang and Kung Lao were trying to do in that moment, was get him mad enough, get him like really heightened so that maybe his special power would come out. Does that fall in line with the games? No, it does not fall in line with the games, but I don't care. It's okay. Have you seen how many times they've changed the fucking history of Mortal Kombat in the actual games themselves? I don't mind if this movie played a little loose with a few things here or there. Now there's two other guys I want to talk about, Liu Kang and Kung Lao. I really enjoyed the depiction of Kung Lao in this movie, and Liu Kang was neat too, but man, was he fucking sidelined. Liu Kang is the champion of Mortal Kombat. He is the guy. Even though he kind of sucked in the first game, he is still the one who won Mortal Kombat. He is Earth's champion, and he is like sidelined more than any other character in this movie. He's there, and I did like the guy who played him. He looked the part, he acted the part. All the Liu Kang stuff was there, but man, we just don't see a lot about him. He is totally sidelined by Cole Young. And this was one thing that did kind of bother me about the movie. I didn't need Liu Kang to be the center of the movie. I was okay with Cole Young being kind of the center. I understand why they did it. I don't totally need it, and I don't think it was necessary, but I get why they did it. It doesn't bother me. We're over it. It happened. It is what it is. But Liu Kang being pushed so far to the side and just kind of more or less being a side character at this point really did just seem a bit off to me. It didn't seem right. It seemed like it was a bit too much. When we're dealing with an adaptation, I can take a lot. I can handle changes to mythology, but you gotta stick with the spirit and feel of the source material, and Liu Kang is just so deeply ingrained in that original spirit and feel of the source material. So for him to be side-railed as much as he was in this movie, I was just kind of taken aback. I wish they had utilized his character a bit more. But hey, I wish they had utilized Scorpion's character a bit more too, but we don't always get everything we want in life. Now, as we saw in the trailer, Liu Kang does do his dragon fatality, or at least a variation on it, and it is pretty cool. By the way, he's doing that to Cabal, which was always one of my favorite characters from part 3, so it was kind of sad to see his ass get taken out in the first movie. But it's Mortal Kombat, some motherfuckers had to die, okay, I get it. But the fatality that was possibly the coolest fucking fatality in the whole movie was from my man Kung Lao. We got Nitera flying around and all this, which was a really random fucking character to put in this movie, by the way. I mean, we can't get Johnny Cage, but we can get Nitera. Really? Either way, they made up for it with this fatality. So she's like flying around and all this, and Kung Lao can't find her, and he's like looking around, and she comes swooping down, and he jumps on her fucking back. He takes his head, he throws it in the fucking sand, and it starts spinning like that. And as soon as it does that, any MK fan knows what the fuck is about to happen, and we, before it, right as it's happening, our minds are fucking blown. They actually did it. He rides that bitch down onto the fucking hat, the buzzsaw hat, like a fucking surfboard, and she just like cuts her fucking body in half slowly, blood going everywhere. It's just nasty. You see inside and everything. It was fucking epic. I don't care if you like this movie or not. If you're an MK fan and you watch that scene and it didn't just put the biggest fucking smile on your face, then you're not an MK fan. That was fucking awesome, and probably one of the most game accurate things that they put in this movie. Now I'm gonna kind of call it a tie between that fatality and the fatality in the end of the movie with Scorpion, only because the Scorpion one is so iconic, and they did actually do it so well and didn't fuck it up. But I ain't gonna lie, I'm kinda leaning towards the Kung Lao one. That one was just fucking insane. It was so cool. Now, the only other thing that I can really think of that I was unable to talk about in my original review for fear of spoiling things would be Jax and his magic arms. I was honestly okay with the direction they started going with this. Sure, having these monks that live in the side of a fucking mountain, being able to like fashion together some like steampunk clockwork arms for him seemed a bit, you know, far-fetched, but this is a Mortal Kombat movie. I was okay with it. They kind of had that rustic kind of old school steampunk vibe going, so it worked. I ran with it. I was like, okay, I got that. But then when, you know, Sonya's in trouble and he's got to go and lift a rock and he's unable to do it, that's when his superpower comes out. And what is Jax's superpower? High-tech robotic fucking arms sprout out of nowhere and take over the low-tech robotic arms that he has. This was a bit much for me. I'm cool with these superpowers manifesting and everybody getting the one and all that. That's fine, whatever, I don't mind. But cyborg robot arms popping out being your special power? I mean, what if he hadn't lost his arms earlier in the movies to Sub-Zero? What if his arms were still fucking there? I mean, I'm assuming these powers, they don't change. It is what it is. Like when you're born, it's kind of like, hey, this is your power, whether it manifests or not, that's your power. So his power is fucking cyborg arms. If his real arms were still there, and then this power manifested, would it just like rip off his other fucking arms and he'd have cyborg arms then? Because it ain't like armor. It shows it all coming out like a fucking transformer. He's got these new, you know, Jax arms from the game. This made no sense to me. And yeah, I know I'm saying something made no sense in a Mortal Kombat movie, but within the story and world that they built here, this did not make sense. And why not just have the monks like continuously add to him and give him those arms? Or maybe just have him had like stronger versions of the arms they had already built him and they were just kind of rustic looking. And then maybe like in the end of the movie he went and got upgrades and they had like the chrome plating and all that. He didn't have to have those like game accurate arms throughout the whole movie. Why not his superpower be some kind of like energy shot or something that he shoots out of his arm like he does in the game? Or fuck, I'd even take that whole wave thing he did in Mortal Kombat 2. You know the move I'm talking about, the one the computer will always do at the beginning of the match no matter what. Play against the computer when the computer's Jax on Mortal Kombat 2 and you'll see he does that fucking move at the beginning of every single match no matter what. But I really would have been cool with any of that, but his arms didn't need to be his special power because like I said, what if his regular arms were still there? He just gonna fucking lose them? Was Jax destined to lose his fucking arms either way? If Sub-Zero didn't rip them off, these fucking superpower, if it ever came out, them motherfuckers are gone. But honestly, like I said in my original review, this movie moves at such a lightning fast pace, you don't have a tremendous amount of time to stop and think about things like this. Well, yes, I did think about it. So much stuff is going on in this movie, a few seconds later, you kind of forget about it and just say, fuck it, and roll with it. And that's what this movie is as a whole. You just gotta kind of roll with it. Enjoy what's happening. Does it all make sense? No. Is it beautifully acted? Fuck no. It's not gonna be at any award ceremonies ever. But is it fun as hell? Does it have a good time with itself? Yes. This is a really fun movie. It's an adaptation of a video game. There are going to be things that are different, and that is okay. If you want the pure Mortal Kombat story, then get the Mortal Kombat reboot from 2011. That is the purest version of the original Mortal Kombat story you're ever going to get. Really, if you're that much of a purist and you just can't stand any deviations from it, you can even look the shit up on YouTube if you don't want to play it. It'll show the whole thing. It goes through Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3. And that is the purest version you're ever gonna get. Now I get that this movie, like any movie, is not gonna be for everyone. But damn, this movie has been super divisive and right down the middle. Looking at my comment section, it's like every other comment is, I love it, and then the next one's, I hate it. I love it, I hate it, 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 I love it, I hate it. I mean, it's there's no in between. There's nobody who's just like, ah, yeah, it was alright, it's cool, yeah, I didn't mind it at all. No, it's all fucking polar opposites. I fucking loved it and it was like just awesome, or this movie's fucking trash and just shouldn't even exist. It's the worst fucking movie I've ever seen. And I don't think it's either of those. I think it is somewhere in between. Yes, I do lean more towards it was awesome because it was really entertaining and just a kind of dumb fun movie. But look at Mortal Kombat. Look at the story. It is so fucking out there. They took stuff from the story and made it their own. Sure, they sprinkled some stuff in and added a few big things to the story that weren't there before. But I think they retained the spirit of what Mortal Kombat is enough. I stand by the fact that I was entertained by this movie, and that was its job as an entertainment medium, was to entertain me. And since it did that, it was a success in my eyes. So there it is, guys. My my spoiler thoughts or review kind of whatever it is of Mortal Kombat. If you enjoyed and want more content like this, hit that subscribe button and help my little channel grow. If you liked what I had to say, give me a like. If not, let me know in the comments below why. And as always, stay sexy, Adenya.
Get over here! Finish them! Kano wins. You fucking beauty.
You know, at the end of the day, regardless if this movie was trash, if it was awesome, if it was better than the 95 movie, or if it was worse than the 95 movie, if it was the same as the 95 movie, if you hated it, if you loved it, I think that everybody here can agree that this movie was absolutely better than Mortal Kombat Annihilation. Granted, it doesn't take much, but it is better.